specifically work on a platform called web.dev. And so if you guys haven't heard of or seen web.dev before, it is like your one-stop shop for anything you need to know as a web developer. Um, I believe like the mission statement for Google is to like index and make accessible all the knowledge in the world. We kind of want to do that same thing for web developers specifically. So we're looking to aggregate content that's like super useful for you as a web developer in order to build amazing sites and applications. So we have the landing page where we have our learn section, which includes different collections about things that you might want to improve on your website, whether that's improving the load times, turning into a progressive web app, security concerns. If you're a React or Angular developer, we have guides and information on how to improve your React and Angular apps, and more and more. We have a measure tool which performs audits on your websites and provides feedback on areas that you can improve your website, which will link directly back to some of these articles that we are hosting on our own site. We have a blog section where we have our amazing engineers, developer advocates, and just a bunch of Googlers with great knowledge on this area, sharing tips and tricks. So today specifically, we're going to be looking at one issue and trying to resolve that on the website. So we're going to find web.dev on GitHub. So the repository is actually github.com/Google Chrome/web.dev. All right, and so the issue I wanted us to take a look at today, it's an old issue sitting on hold on, let's see if I can find this real quick. Assignee, this was assigned to me. It's an old issue, and this is, here it is. It was created on March 3rd by Paul Kinlan, and the idea is that the author page should have more information about authors. So if you go into our blog section, and this is a really good example of what this would look like. Every author has a little photo of themselves and their names here, and you see if I'm hovering over it, that in the bottom left corner, you see that it's actually giving the URL, so I can click straight into that author. So I don't think he has that many posts. I'm gonna just go with someone I feel like I've worked. Okay, we'll go with Hussein. Click in it. And so now we're in the authors page where we can see all the content written specifically by this author. And over here, like, this is cool, and we have his name and this kind of generic title, but there isn't really a lot to go from there. And so this is an area where we're going to kind of look to punch it up and make the experience look or feel at least a little bit better. All right, so what we're going to need in order to do that is actually open up the code base for web.dev. All right, so go into my workspace, into web.dev. We'll open this in Visual Studio Code. And make this a little bit bigger so you guys can see at home. And we are going to jump into the master branch. Let's pull down any changes on the site. So let's just take a look at what the author page looks like locally. npm run dev gets the dev server up and running. All right, site is up and running. All the pages are generated. So we will just swap from web.dev authors Hussein to localhost on port 8080. Here we go. Same page. And one thing I always do when working on the site is I open up the Chrome DevTools. Super useful for analyzing all the content on the page. Just so, and I can manipulate and tinker, especially if I'm doing CSS work, which we're probably going to have to do a little bit today. But another really important reason why keep this up is because the web.dev website uses a service worker. And so when developing locally, I want to make sure I can actually see the changes I'm working on be reflected in real time, rather than waiting for a service worker update. So if I check my network tab, I almost always keep disable cache on, which will prevent the service worker from loading loading in cache content. And this ends up being this is like, as a personal piece of advice, if you're developing, just keep disable cache ticked on in your Chrome DevTools, because you're only opening up Chrome DevTools if you're developing, ideally. So having the cache off is probably super useful. And if you don't have Chrome DevTools open, then disable cache doesn't work. You can see it says while DevTools is open only. So if you're just a regular browser or peruser of sites, doesn't really affect service workers or anything like that, or at least it shouldn't. So let's see. We don't got a lot going on here, but we can make this a little bit more exciting. And let's see what we have on Hussein on our stuff. And actually, I'm gonna switch authors to someone who probably won't be that judgmental. Sam. Sam actually happens to be an engineer on web.dev as well. So we'll work on his profile page and we'll see all the changes we do reflected across everything else. Okay, so we have all the information about every contributor or author who exists on web.dev. It comes in this collection called authors. And so here we manipulate some of the information with the authors and we create a collection. And collections are basically arrays that are available across Eleventy, Eleventy being the framework we use to generate this website. And so it's like a global data source. But this doesn't really include a lot of the information about the authors that we have. It really just manipulates that data. So we get that data that we manipulate from here, data contributors. So we'll click into here. And now we have all of our authors, or all the contributors to the web.dev. And we can see here that we have their name given and family names, so it's like first name, last name, their organization, so where they work, Google, unit, developer relations, country, if they have a home page, their home page, a Twitter handle, and a description. And so let's find Sam and see what Sam's got here. So we got Sam's information. Twitter, GitHub, and Glitch are all Sam, and he has a homepage. I don't know what we're going to do with Glitch yet. I'm going to hold off on that, but at least for the time being, we could probably and should present their homepage, their Twitter, and their GitHub. So I'm going to take a sip of coffee, and then we'll get into that. All right, so this information about, this is the information that we actually have available for the authors, but we want to ensure that that gets rendered out here on the actual page dedicated to an author. So we're going to open up a file where we generate these author pages, because I mentioned that we keep all these authors in something that's a collection, which is effectively just an array that we iterate over. So we have a template, which is, it's just an HTML template. Where is that on here? Let's minimize these components, minimize the includes, minimize all this stuff that we don't need to see quite yet. So it's inside of site, content, authors, and so here's an individual authors page where we'll include the author's name, the description, and the meta information. And here is where we display the title, and here's where we display the description, which is, here's the title and here's the description. So if I was to add, let's just say, a p tag that says hello world. That's not a good p tag. There we go. A p tag that just says hello world. Eleventy should rebuild that. I think it did. Let's see. And now the Sam's page says hello world. But this is actually reflected on every page. So I can do, here, we'll go into another person's page, Addie's. this is one change that we make inside of the template, just a HTML change that gets reflected on every single page. The only problem with that is that, well, hello world is like static content that's not really specific to our authors. We want to make sure that the content that we're displaying is relevant to every author. So here in 11D, we can actually put in some of the content that we're actually, the dynamic content that comes from our authors. So I mentioned that collections are kind of like arrays. So we have this function, attribute in our 11D thing called pagination, and this is what's iterating over our collections of authors and the posts of authors. And so we're grabbing one item at a time. So each page is just one element from this array called paginated posts by author, and the variable is just paged. So what that kind of looks like in how it's implemented here is, if you're a JavaScript developer, it would look something like, it really just looks like a for each statement that or actually, it's more like a map function where, here. So what this translates to pagination, where we're paginating over this paginated post by authors collection at one at a time, and we're aliasing that variable to page. What it really looks like is, hey, go through the paginated post by author, map through it. So we're going to pass in paged, which is the element in the paginated post by author, and then here we kind of just return our HTML template, which is the content that you see in here. So this is kind of how this pagination is working. So if the object is located inside of the paged, let's see what actually exists in paged. And so the double curly brackets means that, okay, this is actually going to be data that I'm passing in that I want to be interpolated, rather than just like plain string or text that's going to be rendered. You kind of see this in different languages. Like in Angular, you would see something like this. And I believe this is just called handlebar syntax. So let's refresh the page, and this is just an object. This needs to be stringified. I do not know if we have a way to string it. Stringify this. We'll see in a second. Now, I think it's a circular data object, so we're not going to be able to see it. But let's do something simpler. Because we know this is an element in the array, I can just do title, and it should give me the title of the author. Or not. Break here. We're going to try running that again, and I'm just going to check our author stuff in a second. I think I know where the issue is coming, but no, page title is valid. All right, let's see again. Okay, give it a refresh. And so here we have Addie's name again. So what information do we have specifically about the author? And what I'm going to do in order to get this is I'm actually going to open up that contributor data that we have so we can see what the fields actually look like for each author, and we'll go from there. So source components, site data contributors. I'm going to open this to the side. Let's find Addie. We'll use him here. It's just a Twitter and glitch, so I'll actually use Sam, just because Sam also had a homepage. So Sam has listed a homepage, a Twitter, a GitHub, and a glitch. So what I should ideally be able to do is just do Sam homepage, Sam Twitter, it might be serving an issue. Out of curiosity, does that sound a bit better? Okay, thank you. All right, so we'll go from there. I apologize for the past 10 minutes or 15 minutes of bad audio. So now that we have our homepage, Twitter, GitHub, and we also want to ensure the glitch content shows up in there as well. Just upping my volume a little bit more. Okay, glitch. Save that. And now if we check out a page, so Addy, I believe, just had Twitter and glitch, so that's the only content we're going to see here. But if we jump back to Sam, now we have all of his stuff listed in here as well. His homepage, his Twitter, GitHub, glitch. So this is starting to get better, but it's we don't want to just list handles and URLs. We kind of want to actually have links to these things. So we're gonna turn these P tags into A tags. A tags being effectively just our links on the page. So A, href, and this is where we're gonna link out to. And now we're gonna have a bunch of links with the word pop. So you'll see the word pop on the page, but if I hover over it, you'll see that it's going to try to link out to these pages, whether it's a home page, a Twitter page, a GitHub, or a glitch. So pop, 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 pop. And if I hover over it, in the bottom left corner, you can see that Whistler info loads. The website loads in just fine. But the other ones seem to have a little bit of an issue, and that's because the URLs that we're putting into the href aren't necessarily valid URLs. We saw in the case of Twitter and GitHub, it's just their handles. So here we're going to have to make a small change where we're going to be appending their handles to the standard URL for like Twitter or GitHub. So that will just be twitter.com/ for Twitter, and for GitHub it'll be github.com/. And I'm going to check glitch in a second because I'm not 100% sure what glitches looks like. Okay, not yet. There we go. Okay, refresh one more time. So hover over the first pop, URL shows up correct, Twitter shows up correct, GitHub shows up correct, and I'll just open these up in separate tabs. So here's the Whistler, here's the Twitter, here's the GitHub, and I suspect for glitch it's just glitch.com/. It is not. Okay, let's see what the glitch handle. So it includes an @ inside of the glitch handle. So let's just add that to here. And just for the sake of making it a little bit easier to read, I'm going to rename these all from pop to actually what they reflect. So we'll do homepage, Twitter, GitHub, and glitch. All right, let's go back to Sam's page, give it a refresh. Did it finish? It should have finished. Give it another refresh. And here we have homepage. Let me close these tabs out so I can pop them open again. Homepage, Twitter, GitHub, glitch. And so here's the homepage. Here's his Twitter. Here's his GitHub. and here is his glitch. So this is awesome. This is going along the lines of what we want it to look like. There is a couple of tweaks we can make here, and the first one is right now, you guys probably aren't seeing this, but when I was clicking into each one, I was holding Command on my MacBook click to open up in a new tab, where I think in this case I would like these pages to open up in their own tab, rather than us directing the user to these pages. That way we kind of keep web.dev open, and if they want to go back to it, they just close a tab rather than having to actually go back. So this is a thing that I forget all the time, and so I'm just going to check out all the attributes of an A tag. So A tags are HTML elements that have attributes that kind of manipulate what any HTML tag does. So we'll do attribute A tag. Is there an MDN? Yes. MDN referring to, I think it's Mozilla Developer Network. Mozilla being one of the greatest things in the MDN being one of the greatest resources that you can actually have. All right, so we're going to do target blank. So this should open up in a new tab on its own without me necessarily having to click anything. All right, target blank. Okay, so now without actually needing to right click or do anything special, if I just click into the home page, it should open up a new tab and take us there. So this is working effectively for what I need here. Next thing we want to do, let's see how this ends up looking for other authors. So let's go in, and here we'll use Thomas. Homepage looks good, Twitter looks good, GitHub looks good. Glitch does not necessarily look good. And I don't know if you guys can see in the bottom left corner, it's just https://glitch.com/@. And there's nothing appended to the end of it. So if I end up clicking into it, page not found. And this is likely because Thomas didn't really provide a glitch handle. So if I just find him in our contributor data, go to Tom. He has his Twitter listed, he has his GitHub, he has his homepage, but he hasn't listed a glitch. And there's probably other people in here that might have one thing listed and not another thing. So here we have Rick, where he has his Twitter, GitHub, and glitch, but he doesn't necessarily have a homepage listed. So we don't necessarily want to display a link if the author's content isn't actually going to show up there. So what can we do to fix that? One thing we can do, and it's the solution we're going to go with, is we're going to only conditionally show these links and URLs. And so this, I need to remember the syntax in Nunchuck. I believe it looks like this. So for example, here on the homepage, we're only going to want to show it if they provide a homepage. So I'll just do an if statement to check if the homepage exists, and if it does exist, then we'll show the A tag, and if it doesn't exist, we don't need to do anything. So here, I believe the syntax I just want is end if, and so if I save here, so what I'm doing here is I'm like, if the object in the array has a value homepage, display the A tag with the homepage. And then I end the if statement. There's no else condition, because the else is not to do anything. So Tom did have a homepage. Who's an author who didn't have a homepage? Rick is an author who didn't have a homepage. So let's take a look at how that looks for him. Well, actually, hold on. First, we go to Tom. We're sticking with Tom. Yes, Tom still has the homepage if I refresh, because he should. That homepage condition is true. But Rick does not have a homepage, and there we go. Rick doesn't have a homepage displayed. So we can do this for every single one of these links, because not everyone is going to have all the links. So there are our if conditions, the closing tags, and let's actually finish correctly writing these if conditions. So here, if they have a Twitter, we will display Twitter. If they have a GitHub, we will display GitHub. And if they have a glitch, we will display glitch. And we'll let this run. All right, that's built. So let's refresh the page. So Rick, yep, Twitter looks good, GitHub looks good, glitch looks good. And let's actually just randomly skim at a couple of authors that we have. Let's go with Jason Miller. So he has a homepage, Twitter, GitHub, and to check the data, yeah, that looks right. Homepage, Twitter, GitHub. Okay, so it looks like we're actually presenting the appropriate links on the page as we where we need to, and that is awesome. We could probably end up making this look a little bit better though, because just saying homepage, Twitter, GitHub, dope, works, but for me, I kind of would rather see like a Twitter logo or a GitHub logo in order to do this. Which that means we're going to need to get some images. So let's see if we can find an appropriate image to display here. Well, before I even get to the Twitter and GitHub, let's check what is available on our material design icons. If I spelled material correctly. If I spelled design correctly, you know what? Autocomplete, take the wheel. All right, so these are the material icons put forth by Google, available under Apache License 2.0. Feel free to use as according to the license. I don't know the license, but I'm not too concerned for a Google product using another Google product. So
that was made by a team of people at Google.
I think my Google Home went off. Hey Google, stop. Sorry about that. Okay, so let's get. Do we have a thing for like a website? We have HTTP. I don't necessarily like that for a website. Web asset might work. I think language, like this globe icon, makes the best sense because I feel like I see that sort of thing for websites because it's the World Wide Web. So what we'll do is we'll just download this icon, language 24 SVG. Let's see if there's something for code. Yep, we got a code icon as well, so I will download that. And now I doubt we have a bird readily available. And honestly, maybe the code icon isn't the best one for GitHub. I'd really like to be able to use the Octocat. But we can at least work with the code one for the time being. The language one, which is the world for the time being. Just give me 1 second. Okay, so we are going to copy over those that image, at least the language image, into the web.dev repository, and then we'll go from there. So here's the code base, source, images, icons. We have a few icons here which are just some SVGs, and we're going to bring in our language SVG into here, and we will just rename this from language 24 pixel to just language. And so that works there. And so instead of having homepage, we can do an image tag. all right, so the source, let's see what was the path here. I think it was just images icons. So let's go with images icons language SVG. And we'll just give this an alt tag because if someone has accessibility issues or is using like a screen reader and wants to understand what the image actually is, it would be useful to explain that, oh, this isn't just an image that with no description. This is actually specifically it's a URL for their homepage. So we'll put homepage there. Okay, so we refresh here, and now we have this little globe icon for the user's homepage. But we probably want to get different images for other things. So Twitter and GitHub most likely provide official icons to use. So let's just search Twitter icon and see what we can get into. So here, Twitter brand resource. Okay, so we're going to be using some of their official stuff. So they have social icons. Looking to present your presence on Twitter either alone or alongside other social icons. It's preferred that our logo is free of a container, but that you also find options to use. So we'll download these Twitter icons, and I guess we should check the brand guidelines real quick, just to make sure we're actually using this correctly. Oh, cool. Gotta download the brand guidelines also. Okay. Only show the logo in blue and white. Don't alter, rotate, modify. Don't animate the logo to make a chirper fly. Don't put it with other birds. Don't accessorize the logo. Don't anthropomorphize. Don't overemphasize. Don't use previous versions of the logo, and follow clear space guideline. All right, clear space guideline is minimum 16 pixels and give it like 25% padding or margin on the left and right side. That should be easy enough to follow. We don't really want to manipulate the color or anything, so that should be good, where we're not really messing with Twitter's brand. Alright, so I did download that. Let me get the download here. And I guess the only question really becomes which icon to actually use. And I'm going to go with the rounded icon. So here we have Twitter social icon rounded, and I'm just going to rename the file to Twitter. And we can do the same thing with our language for Twitter. Twitter, so we're gonna do the same thing for GitHub. GitHub, your logo. Cool. They have a little thing for it. Okay, not to do. Don't use an application icon. Modify it. Integrate with our logo. Use it without permission. Sell. Okay, so these are things we can do with it, which I think is the permission aspect. Use mark and social buttons to link to GitHub profiles or projects. That works for us. So let's download this. And let's get ready to copy that over. And so we got, we don't necessarily have an SVG. They gave us 2 file formats for that are vector based. There's an AI file and there's an EPS file. Let me see if I can not modify the logo, but change the format, which I think is safer to say here. And this is an unexciting aspect of the job where we're going to just update this in or not update this. Can I, like, if I don't want aspects? All right, let's check the other file format. See if I can actually manipulate this. Yes, there we go. Okay. Let's delete like everything we don't need. Don't need this. A lot of stuff we don't need. Delete. Can I just like highlight? Yep, delete all that. Delete all that. Delete all that. So here we just have this one icon. Gonna copy SVG code for this. And what we're gonna do is source images, icons. Let's create a new file called github.svg and paste that into here. So this is the code. I'm not really manipulating or doing anything. I'm just extracting it from the rest of this, the rest of what they provide. I'm just gonna format it because I don't necessarily like the double indent. There we go. So that gives us our GitHub SVG. And so now we can provide a GitHub image instead of just the text that says GitHub. GitHub. And the last one we need is glitch. So glitch icon. Do they have from their website icons glitch? Dope. Nope, that is a glitch project. That is not what we're looking for. Glitch social. Right. Either handbook or press, probably. There we go. Logos. Download brand assets. Do they have any rules as to how it's supposed to be used? Probably. It's probably in the brand asset zip. This I can exit. Delete and quit. And here is what we got. So some app screenshots for glitch screenshots, headshots. We want logos. I don't. Do they actually have anything on how to use it? I don't think, unless I'm mistaken, I don't think they're providing directions as to how you're allowed to use their brand assets, but I'm going to keep it simple where like I really don't want to manipulate anything that they're giving us. So we'll just end up using the here, this like simple, it's a color logo, but it's just a simple logo that they have. So I'm going to rename this to glitch. Copy that into the icons that we have here. And now we have the same thing for glitch. We have the GitHub, we have the Twitter. And we can rename this glitch, save that. Now if we go back into the author's pages, we should be able to see actual icons rather than text, but at least they still have the alt tag as to what the icon is for. So if someone has a screen reader or something, they can see, or they can at least understand what the image that they're hovering over is. All right, here's Jason. Refresh, and that's a massive Twitter icon, a really tiny GitHub, and I'm actually going to go back to Sam, just because I believe he had it all. Okay. URL, Twitter, and, technically correct. This is technically correct, if not scary to look at. So what we're going to want to do next is actually size these images correctly so they're not taking up massive chunks of the screen. And I believe we were recommended, at least on the Twitter one, they provided direct guidance that it should be like an additional 25% on the left and right hand side for the spacing between it and other icons. So we're just going to use that across the board for everything. So let's get into a little bit of CSS. We can minimize this, and let's go into, so we're going to actually have to create a CSS file for the author's page, just because I don't think the author individual pages has styling of their own, but just in case it does, I'm going to search the code base for any bit of Sass we use that might be relevant to authors. What file is this? Assessment question. Okay, we don't want assessment questions per se. This is in the components section. Lib components. Okay, this is not where we want to go. Not components. So we have, I think this is the area we want to be. So we have components for different sections. We have authors. We have W authors, which I believe is for their cards. Author image. I'm not sure where. Yeah, I believe these are for the author cards and stuff like that. What I mean to say is, let's say if we go into this page, this is an author's card. This might not be it either, though. It could also possibly be here, like this image that we see here. This is where that styling goes. So we have W author underscore image, W author authors. Yeah, this I think the styling that we're looking at here, this author, is relevant to what we see here. So let's create a new bit of styling, and we'll call it author page. So author page, and let's just make sure this gets actually imported into our site, or the styling for the site. There we go. And we're going to create a new CSS class. We'll do it W author page icon. So a few things. First one is that pretty much all the styling on web.dev is prefixed with the letter W. There is a reason for this. I believe that regular styling is done with W, and custom elements or web components is done with a web, and that's one way we can have a distinction. We also follow a CSS styling thing called BEM. I don't know BEM well, so I usually kind of guess it as I go, but BEM's good. But if you're interested in how BEM works here, I guess get BEM. Why BEM over others? It's just a naming convention for styles. And you can see what this kind of looks like here, but not going to dig into that, and we'll just go from here. So what we want to do here is that we want to set, this is for the icons. So we'll set the height of all these icons to, let's say, 48 pixels. And then we'll do the margin to the left. So this is where things get fun. They want Twitter mentioned specifically having like the width you should pretty much have like 25% extra on each side. But if each image is going to have 25% extra on each side, they really have 50% extra on each side. So we want half of that, which is going to be 12.5% spacing on each side. Yeah. Instead of actually doing that math, we are just going to use a calc function, which will allow us to compute this. And so instead of having like a quarter on each side, we want an eighth on each side. However, that's not the most complex math. I think that's just like 6 pixels on each side. I could be mistaken, but here we go. All right, so here's a CSS class that we created. We are going to apply it to all these image icons, and I'm actually going to do it after their alt tags. We'll see what that looks like in a sec after it builds. I'm actually going to step out for a quick second. I'm going to fill myself up with some coffee, but I'll be back in like 30 seconds. There we go. Hopefully that wasn't too long, but apologies for the delay. Okay. Let's see what that looks like here. Here's Sam's page. We'll give it a refresh. That doesn't look right. All right, let's take a look at this and see what's going on. So it seems like the CSS class is actually being applied to the image. So here's the author page, but is the actual styling associated with that being assigned? Where that doesn't seem right. So here's that author page is set. We set the height to 48 pixels. Is anywhere in the styling associated to the image tag we have here? We're going to filter out, see, no, 48 pixels isn't really assigned at any point to it. I'm actually going to kill the server and let it rebuild and see if there's just an issue with how that works. Okay, let's give this a refresh and see. Still no. This is odd. Did I write the class name right? W author page icon. W author. Okay, so the attribute that I applied here is icon, not class. So it's not actually being applied as a class, so save that. There we go. Refresh the page. There we go. So now this is starting to look a little bit better. I kind of feel like the icon sizes look a little bit too big, so I'm gonna tinker with making them just a little bit smaller. But let's see what that actually ends up looking like here. So instead of 48, let's say if it was 36, maybe 32. Okay, I'm feeling 32 is like a good size, and then we could work on the margin. I applied margin to the left, I didn't apply margin to the right, so that explains why this looks a little bit off. So let's go back to here. We'll do 32 pixels. We will do 32 pixels. And I'm gonna make one more little tweak here. So right now, if I end up changing the height of the image, I have to apply that change of height everywhere. I don't necessarily want to do that. I'd rather only have to change it in one place. So I'm just gonna create a variable here, and we'll call it icon height, and we'll set that to 32 pixels. And I'll actually change it from icon height to icon size, because I might use it for width instead of the height. So now, instead of having to swap 32 at all the places, I just have to change icon height, pass in icon size to all of it, and that should just get applied. So CSS is done, refresh, inspect. Okay, so calc is taking icon size and it's not swapping it with the variable. And this is something with computing a Sass value in a CSS like function. So we'll just do a quick Google search, Sass variable in calc. Okay, and it looks like it takes an argument. So another person had a similar thing where they tried to calc using a Sass variable, and it looks like they wrapped it in curly braces and prefixed it with an octothorpe. So let's attempt that here. All right, curly braces, octothorpe, close curly braces, save that. Hopefully that should work. All right, so now our spacing is actually looking correct. Height is set, width is not necessarily fixed, but I think this works because the GitHub is a 32 by 32. The height and width is 1-for-1. It's not necessarily true of everything, but I think having consistent height is more important here, just based on how it's going to appear. So that works, that works, that works. And so now if I click onto, opens up in a new tab, that looks good. That looks good, but I don't know if you guys noticed, when I hovered over the GitHub icon here, if I click apply this, so we're gonna toggle the state of the element so that it is, let's see, active. Not too worried about active. That's great for some things. Focus. So on focus and hover, it has a little bit of styling. So we are going to want to kind of remove some of that styling. Okay, so let's create a new CSS class that's specific for these author image. So we'll actually call this link, and this will be the links icon. And this styling is going to be applied here under a few conditions. I actually need to update this to link icon instead of just icon. And the reason why I'm doing this, doing it to link icon, is because the parent is going to have the link class, which is the A tags. And so icon is for something like specifically sub or a child of the A tag. I believe I'm doing BEM correctly. I very well could be doing BEM incorrectly. So I'll let that classes get applied to the elements while I manipulate or figure out what that class is actually going to look like. So we're going to do it in two states. We're going to do it when a user is hovering over it, and let's see what other conditions. It matters. So if the user hovers, the underline appears. If they focus, it appears. Focus within, no. Visited, no. All right, so we'll do it in the condition that if they hover or if they are focused on it. And we're just going to do text decoration none. And this should remove that underline that we saw. So let's save that. Give the page a refresh. So here now the cursor changes, so you know that this is a link, but you don't necessarily see the underline. And that underline kind of looked a little funky. I personally think it looked funky on these icons, but you can click into them and it'll take you to the pages. But there's one more tweak I want to make to this, just to give it a little bit more pizzazz, and I will use Addy again. And the only reason why I'm doing it is because while Sam has a wonderful, wonderful description, I think Addy's is just a little bit more unique and kind of fleshed out, so we'll work with this page for now. So one information that we have about Addy is we have an image, and so I would love to actually be able to display his face and every author's face. I realize how odd this sounds on the page. So let us get this image up and running and see what that looks like. And I'm just putting it at the top. I'm gonna have to manipulate this. We need to check the author data to see how the image is assigned to it. So do we do anything here for the image? No. So how do we get the author's images in web.dev? Questions. Good questions. Hard questions. Well, I know that we use the author's images inside of a few places. I think inside of the author's collection, I end up appending the user's image here. So here is a place where we manipulate the contributor's data in order to add an author's image if an author has an image. So it's inside of the author object in a sub-object called data, specifically with the key hero. So here we can do image source, author data hero, author data, what is it? Alt. The only thing I'm going to do though is we're not really iterating over authors. We're the element that we have is page, so I'm just going to change author to paged. And I'm going to remove this class. Alright, so now we have Addy's image here as well. I guess this is an interesting question. I don't know if I like the image necessarily on top or if I prefer it to the left. I'll show you what I mean when I say like it would exist on the left hand side. Well, at least I'll try to show you. So we're gonna put all this content inside of a div, and this is all of the social and description content. And one thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a quick thing here if the author doesn't have an image, not to show this. So just like before, we'll do the syntax if page data hero, then we will do the end if all right, let's rebuilding. Okay, that didn't necessarily align the way I imagined, but this can probably be addressed with a little bit of flex. I need to figure out the flex that I want to do. So we will do display flex inspect. So he is being squished. This is actually an issue that I had recently when I was doing flex. Like, the spacing was an issue. Let me check. There. Oh god, I need to remember where I did this. It was in the subscribe stuff. Okay. It's not this one. It's not this. There is somewhere here. So we actually have a subscribe form that we created, which uses Flex for these little radio checkboxes that people can click in order to say yes or no to something. And the label that we have, it's aligned with that checkbox using Flex. So let me actually just go to that page and see what I did. I can just inspect that element and go from there. And that is on the page newsletter. So this is actually what I was talking about. So let's hover over this checkbox. And so it has, does it or the, I think it has a CSS class that is relevant here. Or is it the wrapper that has the relevant CSS class? No, it's not the inline flex. It's not this. There's something here. It's not WebKit appearance, none. It's flex shrink. Okay, so this is what we want. So without the flex shrink, you see like it starts to get squished or manipulated. I think flex shrink is the same thing that we're gonna want to apply to the image here, so that we don't get that issue. So let's try just applying flex shrink, and no, that didn't do it. But I think this is going to point me in the right direction. So, okay. We're going to put this inside of a div. So we're going to apply a class to the header here, page header, or author page, just because we're using author page and other stuff. And we're gonna work on that CSS class here. And so the thing we're gonna do is we're gonna apply the CSS display flex. And so that should be at least applied so we don't have to reapply it. Okay, and actually just putting it in the div worked for the spacing bit, so that's a good sign. So here's the image of Addy, here's the content here. One thing I would like to do with this is to kind of space it out, because right now it's like squished with Addy, and I'm not sure if I necessarily like that. So let's work on a class here called description. Yeah, I spelled that I think correctly. And we'll give that a width of 100%, which should allow it to take up the rest of the space that's not used by like, so here's our header element, right? And you can see that it extends up to 960 pixels, but this div here isn't taking up that full space, so we want it just to take up that full space. And then it should center itself out correctly there. So here's our class name, description. Let's apply it to the class here. There we go. So this is starting to look better. It is now more centered. And so the content inside of this div are, for the most part, centered. So Addie's image offsets the description. However, the description is centered within its size. And let's say if I was to hypothetically remove Addie's image, it's still aligned somewhat centered. So I think that works kind of correctly. I'm wondering if there is a way I could manipulate it even further, but I think that works for the time being. I would really, really like it if the text here was centered. Like this stayed in the same position regardless of whether Addie's image was there or not. And I think there's a way to do this. So the div that exists here is only conditionally here. So we could probably do a little bit of styling based on if the div has a parent. Or, sorry, not a parent, a sibling. So let's just do a quick Google search. And I'll explain this as it goes along. CSS Sibling Selector. General CSS com. No, W3 schools might work. Descendant is all, child is not, adjacent sibling. Okay, so we want the adjacent sibling selector selects all elements that are adjacent to the sibling of a specified element. So this affects all P that are followed immediately after the div. Okay. Here's what we're going to do. So this, we're going to apply a class specifically for the div that has the author image. Author image. I'm going to get corrected on all these class names later, so that's fine for now. Author image container. So let's go into our author page and let's work on a little bit of styling for that. So author image container, we will make sure that it has a width, and it's going to be a fixed width of 240 pixels. And we're going to actually give this, we're going to assign this a variable because this is something we're going to be probably manipulating with some of our calculations. So image width is, actually how much, what is actual height and width of the image itself? Let's inspect. The image is actually 158 or 192. Oh, it could be larger. So it's 192 pixels. 192 pixels. And so we will ensure that the container is 142 pixels. That way it can actually take up its full size. And so we want to address a bit of this offsetting. So normally we would like the description to take up the full size. That way, if the author image isn't here, if this isn't here, this div that has our description takes up the full space of this header tag area. And that works great. But if it doesn't take up the full size, we want to manipulate it a little bit because we want it to stay somewhat centered. So what we're going to do here is we're going to do a condition that, let's say, if the author page image container does exist, then we're going to apply a styling to its sibling, which will be the page descriptor. And I'm actually just going to throw it on underneath. And what the condition is going to be is that in order to keep it centered, we're going to minimize the width because it doesn't need to take up the full size of the page. It doesn't need to take up the full size of the page. So this one I'm going to have a little bit of difficulty thinking out. But what it should end up looking like is, and this is something we're gonna probably just manipulate to see if it looks correctly. We're gonna take %, so we're gonna take that initial 100% and we're gonna subtract what that image width is supposed to be. So let's save that and let's see what that actually ends up looking like, and I'll show you guys like how or what this actually means for the styling. All right, so here we have Addy again. Image is 192. And so here we can see that the styling, the width 100% is actually being overridden by this width calculate 100% minus 192. And this calculate 100% minus 192 is applied to an author page description element that is a sibling to author page image container. So because this div here is a sibling to this div, that's why that styling is applied. But if we just remove this div, styling is no longer applied. Okay. Let's refresh it and let's figure out why or how some of this stuff is actually placed. So yeah, let's remove the div again and see like if it was properly centered, where would it be? All right, so it would be about at unfortunately it's taking the full width, so I can't quite properly see, but I get an idea as to where it is by looking at it. It's more centered. So the width I am removing isn't quite enough to correctly align it. Probably has to be a significant amount more. I'm just manipulating to see if I remove more space, what it ends up looking like. And I actually think I know what the issue is. I think I'm only accounting for Addy's image being on one side, but there's still an offset on the right-hand side. So unfortunately, I need to probably multiply this by 2. But now I'm getting into like CSS or Sass syntaxing. I'm not like 100% sure if this is correct. So I'm going to test it here before I actually apply it. Okay, so that looks like it would work correctly. So let's save this. And so this ends up working. So you can see where Addy's name is listed here. And if I end up removing the image, it stays centered aligned. And so this finished. Let's refresh it. Here it is aligned with Addy's image. Let's remove the image, remove the div, still stays perfectly aligned. So one last thing we're going to do is we are going to apply some styling to the image where we kind of want to just give it a rounded look instead of the square. And I'm going to tinker that real quick just to make sure I do it correctly. I believe this is just going to be our border radius. Border radius 100%. There we go. Border radius 100% applies the styling we want. So that is already saved. Border radius 100%. Save that. But now if we refresh the page, we have Addy here with his Twitter handle, his glitch image. If we go check out another author like Adam, Adam's content shows up here as well. And so this is starting to look good and exactly what we want it to look like. So I am going to say that we have gotten what we're looking for today. Gonna make a few tweaks to this and push this up to GitHub as a pull request. Hopefully we'll see this live and deployed on the website by the end of the week. I hope you guys found this useful. Again, if you want to contribute to web.dev and help make the site a better place, you can just go to github.com/Google Chrome/web.dev. Apologies for the audio issues in the beginning, but I hope this was useful for some of you who are interested in becoming a web developer or interested in contributing to web.dev, and just people who want to see how things work on web.dev or at Google.